Hello, it's Friday. Dan Carter nearly makes an appearance to the Blues, and it's the start of the summer holidays. And welcome to the Rock and Roll podcast. It's just Harry and I this week, so this is going to be unedited and straight talking preview of this weekend's games. I might be doing some whooping and hollering in a minute as I've got the Reds and Force game running in the background. But let's start with the Hurricanes and Blues, so in Super Rugby Aotearoa on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock. Last time out, this is just a repeat of round one, the Blues took a 30-20 victory up in Eden Park. But a late fight back try from Jamie Booth at the end reduced the gap, but the Canes were well beaten. But they're coming into the game 2 from 2, and it's a second and third place game this weekend. So the form for the Canes actually in Wellington's pretty strong. They won 42-24 back in 2018. So hopefully it should be more of a closer game than we saw in Eden Park earlier in the competition. So Dane Coles returns to hooker. I think Amua drops to the bench, which is a bit unlucky as he was one of our star players last week. Reed Prinsap is back at 6 and Flanders drops out of the 23 altogether. Jackson, Garn and Bishop's back at 10 and with Fletcher Smith's out of the 23. So whether that's injury, I'm not sure, but I've got some stats on them too, which we'll discuss a bit later on. Peter Munga Jensen is back at 13 with Vince Arso dropping out, and Asaya Walker Lewa is in the second row replacement for the first time on the bench. Around the Blues, you've got Dan Carter was on the bench, but with a calf strain, he's being replaced with Duffy. Kurt Eklund starts a hooker, so James Parsons is out again. Leirua and Renata come onto the bench as replacement hooker and Luce respectively. Christie continues at 9. Plumbers at 12 with TJ Fiani continuing on the bench. Enamami Nawara is in for Cale Clark, who's just unavailable. It's quite interesting. I did some research on him. Quite an interesting guy if you've not seen him. He was in the Bay of Plenty successful team that got to the final of the 2019 competition. 9 tries in 12 games. So he's quite interesting on the wing. But the big news and our sort of talking point I'm going to bring Harry in now is Hoskins Satutu's injured. He's out. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with him. But Akira Ioane moves to 8 and Aaron Carroll starts at 6 for the first time. Harry, what's your thoughts on Hoskins out?
Yes, hi Johnny. I mean, we don't really know what's wrong with Satutu. The Blues didn't really stress it in their in a little article that they put out accompanying the squad announcement. It just said that he was not considered due to the injury, some form of knee injury. It's not seen as season ending, which they do as a separate category. I know Tanya Lutalea, who's been an outside centre wing option for them, that I was quite looking forward to seeing play again in the Aotearoa, hasn't featured at all, and it looks like won't due to a season ending injury. So it seems like they expect Satutu will be back, really along with Robinson and Parsons. So hopefully if they're both back, I think Blues have got the Crusaders for the last game of the tournament. Have we?
Yeah, that's right. They've put the scheduling, so that works out quite nicely, I think.
Hopefully the 3 of them are back. 3 of them are back fit. Maybe even Dan Carter for that game. That would be good fun. Given that it looks like the Crusaders would have probably won the tournament by then. But yeah, I completely agree. As you say, Narrower is quite an exciting option to bring in to replace Caleb Clark. I think Clark as well has some light injury, or maybe just being rested.
Yeah, it seemed to me that he was rotated out, or he was the statement that was released said he was unavailable. That Hoskins was injured, but and Caleb Clark was unavailable. So that might be family issues. It could be arranged things. I don't.
Is there a sevens camp?
Maybe I'm not sure. But as I said, this kid that they brought in, I had a little, as I said, watch his highlights actually after you suggested to Harry, and yeah, he carried Caleb Clark himself is a big loss. Like he's carried 222 meters this campaign, so that's huge. Like he's in the top 5, so he's got big shoes to fill. But as I say, like 9 tries in 12 games in the Mitre 10, which is, as I say, is a competitive competition. Yeah, it's interesting on that. But yeah, they're definitely going to miss Satutu. I had a little look at his stats, and like he's won 12 lineouts for them, which is 2 more than Patrick Tuipulotu. So like that's a massive thing in their line-out option that they've got to go to. But Papali'i's going to step up, I think, and got to have a good game, and Carroll's got to come in and do a job for them.
Completely agree.
Papali'i.
One thing about Narrow, that he pretty much always carries the ball in one hand. So we will see how that goes for the Blues. I know it's quite risky, but obviously allows him to get some more interesting offloads away. He's very much a fan of that out the back, right-handed out the back, when it looks like he's about to pass left. So hopefully that'll help the Blues. It'll be something more exciting to watch. I can't say I'm too familiar with Aaron Carroll, who the Blues have brought in at 6 instead of Satutu with Ioane at 8. Maybe slightly surprised that Lambourne isn't starting, given that he's been their fourth choice flanker. Been on the bench for a few games so far, but I suppose there's no reason not to give Carroll a game, given that the Hurricanes back row going against that, you need to have quite a lot of energy. I think Lambourne's a bit older, so bringing him on for the last half hour could be nice and impactful. But yeah, nice to have Akira Ioane as your backup number 8. Like, you lose most teams in the world, you lose a player of the quality of Hoskins Satutu, you haven't really got a backup anywhere near that standard. But Ioane's been playing really well, taking a bit of responsibility for that Blues try last week that ended with Talia in the corner. So hopefully he can keep that going at 8.
Yeah, that brings me nicely on to the next point of, like, does that open the door for the Canes and actually the Ione Surveyor battle at 8 as Surveyor continues at 8 is quite exciting. Do you think the Canes have potentially got more of a chance with Satutu out and Clark out? Obviously, we talked about his replacement, but that's 2 big players they've not got in there.
Yeah, you'd certainly have to think so, especially considering. So it's quite interesting, the 2 skill sets that the Blues are losing. They're losing pace in the forwards that they're losing, and they're losing power in the backs that they're losing. So Clark is significantly bigger than Narrower, and that might be an issue given that the Hurricanes back 3 are all 6 foot and above, 90 kilos and above. In particular, Ben Lamb, who'll be opposite him, is obviously absolutely massive. Narrower's going to need to have a really good game. Either that or Rieko Ioane is going to be doing a lot of work covering back, helping him out.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's perfectly capable of doing that, and Ioane's got that covering speed that maybe they won't be too concerned. They'll expect to have a double tackle on Lamb almost every time. But certainly something to watch out for. But yeah, I completely agree. Surveyor against Ioane. Surveyor's so much faster than Ioane. They're similar in like the tight sort of channels and their individual carrying power, but Surveyor will be able to get away from the scrum so much quicker than Ioane will. He'll get to the Blues backline before any of the Blues back row can reach him, which will be a bit of a concern. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Garden Bashop in for Fletcher Smith's an interesting choice for the Hurricanes.
Yeah,
I suppose Garden Bashop's a bit more reliable, a bit bigger. If you're worried about Rieko Ioane running at him, but we'll see.
Yeah, as I say, on that, it's quite good you brought that because I've found some stats on that. Because again, it raised some eyebrows for me while he was back in the team. Whether Fletcher Smith is injured at all, I don't know. But so just looking at their sort of key areas that you need to look for at a fly half. So Fletcher Smith's got 67% kicking, which is not great for Super Rugby out of 9 kicks. This is his 2020 stats. He scored 1 try. He's got 9 try assists, which is good. So he's run 75 metres, beaten 6 defenders, and has an 80% tackle success. While Garner Bashop's got an 80% kick based off 10 kicks, no tries, 5 try assists, only 46 metres, only 2 defenders beaten, and only a 57% tackle success rate. So though it's a really interesting call, because if you're looking at the stats wise, like, yes, Garner Bashop's got the kicking game, but Fletcher Smith's got him in every other department, like, as more of a attacking minding player. And actually, like, is kicking for goal that much important when you've got Jordie Barrett on the field, who is excellent at goal kicking? It's a strain for me, unless Fletcher Smith is injured, and I couldn't work out if he was or not. I couldn't find anything on there. That might be just my inability of researching, but it's a strange call because he was really good last weekend.
Well, remember Garden Bishop did have what we sort of identified as his best game of the tournament, that first game with Jordie Barrett back. So those Garden Bishop stats are a bit, let's say, almost polluted by the fact that he played 3 games without Jordie Barrett, whereas Fletcher Smith has only played with him. I imagine that will make Garden Bishop's stats look a lot better in this game coming up with a bit more time and space given to him. His carrying's been pretty good, so potentially Garden Bishop running at a Terry Black could have a chance there.
But yeah, as I say, it's an interesting call, and I quite enjoyed just looking at the stats. Really, Rugby Pass are fantastic for their breakdown on the stats. Otherwise, I think the only other match that I really wanted to think we should probably discuss is the Barretts, the Battle of the Barretts. Obviously, Jordie in his favourite position at 15, Beaudie playing at 15 again, which seemingly is the position that they're sort of taking with at the Blues. Beaudie's got to have a good game. He's got to have Jordie's on fire at the moment. You'd say Jordie's probably the better Barrett brother at the moment. Like, just what he's doing and the impact that he's having. Beaudie's got to show his full metal. And I think this is time where he's had those settling periods where he's had a few games where he's not been bad at all. Crusaders, he was a bit off, as we talked about a lot on Sunday. But yeah, he's got to take the game to the Canes tomorrow. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Especially given that he'll need to be covering a little bit for Narrower, and I'm not sure how well Narrower's going to do under the high ball. He's not the tallest player. I'm not sure how much sevens he's played, because that usually translates well into some of these back three being particularly good under the high ball and contested kicks. So it'll be interesting to see if Jordie targets him. I know Garden Bishop's kicking out of hand is also quite good, so sort of crossfield kicks from Garden Bishop into that area with Ben Lamb and Jordie both competing for it against Narrower. Beaudie's going to need to be covering that and going to need to be quite switched on defensively as well as in attack. There's a lot of options in that Blues backline in terms of playmakers, though, given that Plummer is also effectively a 10 playing at 12. So again, it might be another game where Barrett doesn't really take control, which we've been really hoping that he would or might. Obviously, he's had a big influence, been kicking off both feet and enabling the more outside backs of the Blues to get a bit of space, but he's not really been the standout player yet.
What I will say, just to go slightly away from this, is if you've not seen this as well, Harry, do go and have a look at it. I think it was on Rugby Pass, but there was I think it was actually on the Blues Instagram, actually. There was a little kicking competition in the rain between Carter, Barrett and Rico Ioane, which is just fantastic. Like, they're doing like side on kicking through the posts. Okay. And who buys the coffees in the week, and it's really, really interesting. Obviously, to see Dan Carter, the old New Zealand head against Barrett, and then chucking the young blood of Rico Ioane in there. It's good. Go and have a look at it. For me, the only other thing that I wanted to bring up as well, those that have been probably watching Super Rugby a little bit more now, and the New Zealand front row options are starting to really increase. Alex Hodgman's had a great year. His battle against Tyrell Lomax is really exciting. And I've spoken before how I love Lomax's name in itself. It's great. But yeah, the battle of Loosehead versus Tide is going to be really key as well. But predictions, Harry, let's move it on. Should we predict what your thoughts?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Sorry, I'll just quickly look at the weather, because that does actually affect the Hurricanes more than it affects the Blues. Anyway, it's going to be kind of dry and warm tomorrow morning in Wellington, or rather tomorrow evening their time. I think that looks quite good for the Canes, if I'm honest. This could be a pretty tight game, but the Canes have got more or less their strongest possible team, and the Blues have got some quite significant absences. I'm not really sure why TJ Farney's not starting again. I suppose Plummer is
But especially up against now Laumape, where we talked about before that the Canes' attack is through Laumape. You want to have a really solid hit on him, and even if he goes over the gain line by 5 meters, that's still getting in behind. So, Plummer's a good player, but you expect TJ Fiani's a bit more solid in that role. But anyway,
we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if the Hurricanes could take this, given that they're effectively at full strength, and the Blues are missing some good players. We haven't actually mentioned that Carl Tuini Kiwafe isn't in the squad again. The Blues substitute props Marcel Renata isn't quite at the same level. Mafaleo has been good, but Renata's not quite at the same level. And I really haven't seen Luteri Tolai play before, the substitute hooker, so should be interesting. But Eklund's had a good.
Isn't it? So he's third choice, isn't he?
I wouldn't be surprised if Eklund played 70, 75 minutes.
You're sort of seeing with the Blues that they are starting, well, actually in general with how both competitions actually, that a lot of teams are having to rotate, whether that is due to injury or because especially in Aotearoa that the attrition rate is, because obviously the break from Super Rugby is usually you'd probably have like a really hard game against a South African New Zealand team, potentially the Brumbies. Then you'd have a week off basically playing against the Sunwolves or like a weaker South African team so they can recover. But they're hitting. The collisions are ridiculous. So, it's interesting. There's a lot more change, especially in the Aotearoa teams and that. I'm going to go with the Hurricanes, actually. I've changed my mind while you were in there. I thought about it a little bit more. I think that the Blues will miss out on Clark and Satutu, especially in the line-out as well, where they've been strong. The Hurricanes are on form at the moment. They've 2 wins from 2. They're looking strong. They've got an identity now in their attacking philosophy. Jordie Barrett's on form. Hurricanes are strong in Wellington as well. The Blues haven't won there for a while. Give me Hurricanes by 5, but it's going to be exceptionally close, like all these games are. Moving on to Sunday, then in Super Rugby Aotearoa, you've got the Chiefs back after a bye versus the Highlanders. Last time out, it was Bryn Gatland's sinking his dad 28-27 with a last-minute drop kick. So which Gatland's going to come out this week is going to be interesting. Obviously, Bryn, as we go through the team, isn't actually playing this week, but there's an exciting news, which I'll reveal in a moment. Last time out, the Highlanders were in Hamilton. They did come away with a 30-27 victory, so this game is going to be very tight on form. The Chiefs, Mitch Brown's in for the injured Arcoy, who's taken off on a stretcher. Hopefully he's all right. Caleb Trask is back at 10 for Cruden's moving on to the bench. Alamalo, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, is on the wing, which I thought, and Ailes, oh God, I can't pronounce that. Nakaveli, maybe? Second row's on the bench, I think. Leonard Brown's moved to 13, which is interesting, with Quinn Tapai. No, I've got that completely wrong. Ailes Navai is in at 12, with Leonard Brown at 13.
Nankavel.
There we go. We'll get there. So this is going to be completely unedited, Harry. So we'll go over that. So Leonard Brown's moved to 13 with Quinn Tapai, who's been actually pretty strong for the Chiefs, is on the bench. Triple T stays on the bench. A bit unlucky. I'd have liked him to have potentially started this game, but they continue with Brad Weather, the more experienced Brad Weather at 9. Highlanders name an unchanged front 8, which is really important. Dylan Hunt, who's been fantastic, 7 continues. I want to talk about him in a minute. One change in the back line is Josh McKay comes in on the right wing for Jonah Nareki. He's on the bench. But great news for Highlanders fans. Josh Ione is back on the bench. We've talked about him ever since we've started this podcast. Finally, we're going to see a bit of Josh Ione. How good is it to see him back?
Oh, it's fantastic. There's a brief interview with him on the Highlanders website about how excited he is to be back. I can really see him having a big impact given how strong their pack has been and how good their outside backs and how solid Thompson and Tompkinson have been in the centres are. Really the only slight issue, even though Mitch Hunter's been good, the difference between the Highlanders being competent and hard to beat and being genuinely almost as good as the Blues is probably that 10-15 axis. Don't be surprised to see Ioane come on for Collins and one of the two of them go to 15. But yeah, really exciting, great to see. Really, that whole Highlanders substitutes backs, the three of them are
strong in it.
One of the most exciting parts of this game. Folau
Yeah.
Fakatava, the substitute scrum half, is really highly thought of. Had a really good campaign with the New Zealand under-20s a couple of years ago. And been a bit unlucky given that Smith and Kane Hamilton have been in such good form. He'd probably hoped to get a few more minutes so far in Aotearoa, but I think Hamilton broke his hand towards the end of last week. So, or at least had some injury. So Fakatava's been given a chance, hopefully. I mean, you wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Smith played almost the whole game, but they'll give him a few minutes. And then Nareki has been pretty not scored too many tries yet, but he's very exciting. And he's on the bench because of Josh Mackay, who I was quite surprised at the beginning of the tournament hadn't really been featuring at all for the Highlanders so far. Really, really fast wing or fullback option with a good boot. So hopefully the Highlanders can be as good as they can be this week.
I think for me the key matchup is, and I'm really, 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 the more I watch him, the more I think, I reckon he could potentially push himself into All Blacks contention. So Dylan Hunt versus Sam Cane. There's a lot of talk at the moment in New Zealand that Sam Cane is not the best seven in New Zealand, and that they might have gone a little bit early on the New Zealand captaincy. So, and I'm sort of on that side of things that the stats don't lie. Like Dylan Hunt has made 60 tackles in 5 games, so he's averaging 12 tackles a game, which is insane stats. Like he's got over 15 tackles more than the next person. You've got Shannon Frizzell at the moment, who's on ridiculous form. He's got 8 offloads or something ridiculous like that. And yeah, Sam Cane's having, like, as I say, it's great to see him back. He's had a long injury and he's probably not hit his straps as opposed to the guys that he's competing against in Ardie Savea, Dylan Hunt, before he got injured. What's his name? The Crusaders lad. Cullen Grace. Kiri Ioane saying that it's strong. Like it's a big call from Foster to give Cane the 7 shirt. Quite a lot the captain early on anyway.
Yeah, I suspect we've both read the same article in the week talking about how, given the back row stocks that New Zealand have at the moment, to effectively reserve one of those 3 spots for Cane, who has been good and obviously has had a big impact for the Chiefs since he missed those first couple of rounds and then coming back in. They have looked better with him there, but not. He individually has not really been anywhere near as good as Hunt or Papali'i, to be honest. They've had much bigger impacts on the game, and they're both pretty young and pretty, certainly with very limited international experience. I think Papali'i had 1 cap. I'm not sure Hunt has any. You expect, really, this could be a statement game from Sam Cane, showing everybody why Dylan Hunt is not at his level and why Cane can be trusted that conversation can be finished with. But at the same time, Ardie Savea is just doing wonders for the Hurricanes and is as realistic an option at 7 as anyone else in the world, given that the All Blacks have a lot of choices at 8 right now.
Well, he's the most versatile in there, that Savea could play 6, 7 and 8. Realistically, and there's talk of New Zealand hosting a World Cup style rugby championship where they're all going to come to New Zealand and stuff. There's talk of that and stuff, which once we get a bit more information, we'll discuss in more detail. But at the moment, if the All Blacks are playing tomorrow, Ardie Savea is in that back row. But regardless of where he's at 6, 7 or 8 is completely up to the Fosters. But he has to play him. He's one of the best back rows in the world. Just on Dylan Hunt, no caps for New Zealand. But he's got 1 cap. Oh no, he has actually been capped. Apparently, got capped back in 17-18. But I don't.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anyway, might have 1 cap. Yes.
Okay.
He got made his debut for New Zealand against France in November 2017. He's got 1 cap, 25 years of age. So same age as us, which is funny, but yeah. Yeah, I really like the look of him, and it's going to be interesting. I'll move it on with the predictions. I think based on the Chiefs are struggling with an identity at the moment. They're probably the only team in the competition that don't have a thing of what they're going to do, or they're relying a lot on Mackenzie. Like Mackenzie's meter stats and how much he's run is ridiculous. I think it's nearly up to 300 at the moment. He's well ahead of anyone else, but they're not made. But that sort of shows how much he's having to do. Give me again. It's going to be close, but give me the Highlanders by 3. As I say, they've got a strong line out, strong scrum. I love Tonkinson and Thompson. They're my favourite centre combination in the competition. They're not the flashiest, but they do everything you want from those two roles. So yeah, and I'm loving Frizzell and I'm loving Dylan Hunt at the moment.
Yeah, no, I would be loath to disagree with you, Johnny. Really, to be honest, I'm loath to back anyone sort of to beat the Highlanders at the moment, given how well they're playing. Other than the Crusaders, you think they're one of the hardest teams to beat. You can always expect the Blues to score a lot of tries, but they're a little bit fragile when you compare them to the Highlanders. But I think this Chiefs team could be quite well if they all played to the standard that they're capable of. This Chiefs team could hold up to them. They've got a good front row. They've got a very, very good back row. Boshier, Kane, Sokula should be a very, very strong back row. Sokula's a huge amount of work.
Massive.
The Chiefs so far in the tournament. Alomalo back in, starting on the left wing for the Chiefs. So again, sort of really similar to the Highlanders, how the Highlanders have been over the tournament. 1 to 15 looking pretty good, and then not quite sure what's going to happen with 10. Kayla Trask hasn't had as good a game as he's probably been hoping to. And then as sort of an overall picture, the Chiefs haven't been very good, or haven't been as good as the names on the team sheet have looked. So yeah, I would expect the Highlanders to win again. They've got this very, very settled team. Make a couple of changes here and there. Wetton into the second row, Mackay into the wing, but otherwise this is a team that have all played together for 5 or 6 weeks now. You'd expect the Highlanders to win again. It's actually going to be quite sunny in Hamilton tomorrow afternoon, 17, 18 degrees, or rather Sunday afternoon. So could be a nice day for it.
Absolutely. What you were just talking, I had a look at the stats very quickly, and yeah, Sokulu, who's got 49 carries, and then only above him is Laumape on 51, and Mackenzie's on 57. Like crazy stats. He's, as I say, very promising. But yeah, it's going to be close again, as all these Super Rugby Aotearoa games need to be. We'll move on to Super Rugby AU. The Reds Force game's on at the moment. As I say, I paused it because I actually quite like to watch it. So I'll watch that after this podcast. The only sort of big highlight and news from the week is Richie Kahui, the new ex-All Black centre, signed for them at the age of 35. Interesting purchase, but he's been keeping himself fit. He was actually going to be looking at playing Aussie rules. I was reading a bit about him. So yeah, I think overall not a bad signing for the Force, as they need a bit of power.
Where's he been playing most recently?
I have a feeling he was. I want to say he might have been playing New Zealand club rugby, maybe.
Let's have a look.
But he is a player of note to watch. As I say, he was when the Chiefs won their versions of the Super Rugby competitions a few years ago, quite a few years ago now. He was in that fold. He's sort of been there and thereabouts in the All Blacks. They sort of, if they needed a centre. When Conrad Smith and Marnonu weren't available, he was there. Great, hard tackler, good. He's got a good offloading game. He's just a very good, very, very good centre. 35, we're seeing a lot of players taking on less workload. So he can still offer the Force a lot. Same, yep. They've got Thrush, they've got John O'Lance that are probably in there. They're just over their prime, but useful to bring into that Force setup anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It looks like he was obviously probably his best period of his career seems like in the 2011 World Cup, where he was one of the one of their key players on the wing, but he's been playing in Japan for the Toshiba Brave Lupus, where he's been one of their better players recently. He's scored a good number of tries actually, 128 points in 63 games. That's a try every 3 games or so, I think. With I assume a couple of kicks in there to have that slightly uneven number. So still pretty impactful. Yeah, hopefully he can do a job for them. If at the very least, a good personality to have in the camp, given that quite a lot of that squad is very young.
I'd almost, you still could also brandish him with the same. Obviously, we're not going to compare them on the same level, but Carter, the same. He could have the same role as Dan Carter he's having at the Blues, where he's a mentor role. They've got 2 young centres in the force, so yeah. For me, it's a good pickup, and it's a good for him to pick up a short-term contract. Good stuff.
Very.
We'll review that game on Sunday, but Waratahs Brumbies is the game on Saturday. A couple of changes for the Waratahs is Tom Robertson and Tom Horton coming for Angus Bell and Robbie Abel, a loosehead and hooker respectively. Jack Dempsey's in at 8 for Will Harris, who's having a good start to Super Rugby AU. Alex Newsom, the vice captain, moves from 13 to the wing to accommodate Carmichael Hunt, starting for the first time at centre. This campaign anyway. James Ram continues on the wing, and Jack Maddox is at 15. Well, the Brumbies have got their very impressive and probably expensive front row of Slipper, Fianga and Alan Alatoa, who's the captain. They lead an unchanged forward pack from their opening win against the Rebels 2 weeks ago now. The only change in the team is a positive one anyway, is that the exciting Tom Banks is back at 15, replacing Matt Hansen, who's on the bench. Brumbies showing consistency in their selection. Obviously, they've had a week off, so they've recovered straight away. My key battle that I'm excited for anyway is Will Harrison versus Noah Lolosio, the 2 exciting 20-year-olds, both at fly half. Very, very matched nicely on stats I've had a look at. Harrison was just editing it, I think, on impactful stuff, but very, very exciting if you're an Australian looking towards the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Waratahs are sort of building into being a slightly better team than they have looked. They did well to come back against the Force last week. Obviously, the Force with a slightly ragtag bunch of players, the Tars would have been a bit embarrassed to not do better. But it seems like the Reds conceded some early tries to the Force as well. So it seems just to be the Force start strong and then tire, which is sort of what we expected anyway. Maybe didn't expect them to be quite as strong as they have been, which has been good to see. But yeah, this Brumbies team is certainly the most well-rounded of any of the Australian Super Rugby teams. I think if they can hold themselves to the same standards that the New Zealand teams hold themselves to, the intensity that they play with, the accuracy, and can keep this, which was becoming quite a consistent 15. Obviously, they've got really good options on the bench in Lockie McCaffrey and Scott Seo. Having a club team having its 2 loose head options as James Slipper and Scott Seo is unbelievable. It's really, really, really good for the Brumbies. You can see why they're the favourites for this tournament. The back row of Valetini, Cusack and Samu would almost hold it with any of those New Zealand ones. The only issue probably being that Samu's not quite big enough. But he's got the same sort of level of speed as Surveyor, and their overall impact on the game, they're pretty exciting. Maybe the only weakness they have is the second row, but Douglas and Swain they're perfectly good enough. But every other position on that pitch, they've got some really, really good players. So yeah, you'd have to expect the Brumbies will win this.
Yeah, I was going to say the Brumbies might win it quite comfortably. I was actually going to go with the 15. I like Kuandrani's being solid again for them. I've got a lot of respect for actually Kuandrani, because where he's been in the back line for Australia, where a lot of them have gone over to Australia to France and Europe to make a lot more money. he's sort of stuck around in the Brumbies for the majority of his career. So yeah, I've got a lot of time and respect for him. Michael Hooper and Rob Simmons will need to have strong games for the Waratahs, as we do mention that the Waratahs is a particularly young team. But as I say, I think the Brumbies are pretty solid outfit. That driving mauls and the line out is a thing of beauty, really.
Yeah.
From that point of view, so I expect them to win, and I expect them to win by 15.
Yeah, agreed. I do think Kuridrani did. I think he had a contract with a Japanese team for this year, and then obviously couldn't go. That might be wrong, but I'm fairly sure that he has. Obviously, he's not been short of offers given how good he is. But he's been one of those guys. I think he's only just reached that 60 cap line, so I think he was one of those who they were expecting to go abroad for a bit and earn a bit more money. So hopefully obviously with the pay cuts that the Australian Rugby Union have imposed, given that he has been so loyal and such a great player for Australia and the Brumbies, hopefully he personally hasn't suffered, his sort of overall career earning potential hasn't suffered too much, given that he's reaching that point where he would be expecting and frankly deserving one of those nice £500,000 a year contracts. Just a fantastic player for such a long time. He's only 29.
Yeah.
So he's got a bit left in the tank.
He's got a lot to offer. There'll be a lot of, I'd say, I don't know, with obviously the Premiership clubs at the moment are sorting out their contracts and everything like that, but I'd love to see him in the Premiership potentially with a club. He's a great option. His cousin is Nahimi Nundolo of Leicester now. And his brother Chris is, the last time I sort of followed him, he was at Montpellier. He might have moved around now, but
what's he doing now? He is now playing for the Honda Heat.
Okay, so he's moved out of France. But yeah, so hopefully, we'll see how he goes on. But as I say, very, very important for the Brumbies in that back line that have got some exciting players. And if you've not seen Banks play before, enjoy. He's very, very, very exciting.
He's a lot of fun.
Right, we'll leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed this unedited, unscripted, bish-bash in-depth of rugby. But yeah, that's our preview pod done for the week. We'll see you on Sunday for our review of the weekend's games. We'll continue to predict our starting lines. 15, we've got a contested back row in there. And we'll discuss a little bit more about the transfers in and around the Premiership as well, as they are starting to heat up, which is great. I'll see you tomorrow, Harry.
Yeah. See you tomorrow, Johnny.